Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Kingdom Hearts HD Dream Drop Distance playthrough. It is time to continue on with our journey through Traverse Town. Sora's woken up again now, and yeah, he's going to do a little bit of exploring, I feel. Because we need to find out what bloody Neko was up to, bloomin' annoying dick.
But what was the deal? Are the two of them in league? That can't be right. We never even found Neku's partner. I guess I should just take a look around.
So yes, this is where we finally get the ability to drop. So you can actually drop at any time, which is ultimately going to be the thing that I do recommend you do if you're going to not find it as frustrating. So you have ultimately two options with how you're going to tackle getting through Dream Drop Distance. You can either fight the drop gauge, or you can effectively use it to your advantage in a weird sort of way. So what you can do is, what I'm going to do throughout this playthrough is I'm going to use items called Drop Me Nots, which ultimately mean that the drop gauge gets refilled and you can play for longer. That is a certainly completely viable tactic, and one that I'm pretty sure most people will probably use, and I'm really annoyed because I'm going to miss a chest which is up on that platform up there for a very long time. Like, pretty sure until we return to visit Traverse Town again at some point in the future, which is bad. But yes, so you can use Drop Me Nots, which are very useful and certainly a good way of getting through the game, but one that is kind of potentially expensive and also means that you're constantly rotating out an item from your command deck slot, or you permanently leave it in your command deck, which then limits the potential for other moves that you can have in your deck, which is frustrating. The other thing you can do is that generally the drop gauge gives you more than enough time to make it from save point to save point. Like, plenty of time. While the kind of world in Dream Drop Distance can be quite big, frustratingly so at times actually, there is definitely more than enough time between save points for if you're just going through regularly and dropping just as it happens. So what I definitely did in my original playthrough of Dream Drop Distance, so when I first played the game, I got to a save point and then purposefully dropped to the other character, played through their bit to the save point, dropped, and so on and so forth. That's how I did it. And so when I was playing it, ultimately it was never that frustrating of a concept. It didn't really faze me all that much, and I think because I did it in that fashion, it worked. However, because of obviously how I am actually doing the playthrough this time round, it's a bit more complicated, because of that whole idea of I want to do kind of the singular isolated stories in one go for each character, because in a playthrough sense, in terms of presenting the narrative to people in a way that's easily accessible, easily findable, all that sort of stuff, it makes sense. So I certainly did find the drop gauge more frustrating this time around than I did initially, but as I said, I think that's just because I've changed the way that I played the game. It's a concept which I understand why they did it, but I do think that it is not and was not necessarily the best idea, and having kind of two separate stories, or the ability to change between the two on the main menu once you kind of completed a world, I feel that that might have been a better option if that makes any sense. Well, just of course it makes sense. But yeah, I feel like that would have been a better path that they could have gone on, and would have ended up being much more successful, actually. Because then you wouldn't have had that innate fury at kind of being forced into a drop when you don't want it, and actually you've got that freedom of choice of how you want to tackle the story. So you could theoretically do all of Sora's in one go, you could do all of Riku's in one go, and you're not sort of limited by the drop gauge. But then theoretically that would mean that you're then getting so far in with one character, and then going back to your other character who's a lot lower level and having to sort of relearn a lot of the sort of combat speed and style and stuff. So I get why they introduced the drop gauge, but yeah, fundamentally it was not necessarily the best of ideas, and it's definitely one of the more divisive ideas that they had. So yeah, once again, Dream Drop Distance is divisive. But yes, here we have a battle portal. So we already had the explanation of link portals in the last part, but throughout the worlds you have a kind of a few different types of portals. So you have friendship portals where you can borrow Dream Eaters, quite helpful. It's something that made more sense in the original 3DS version because it was very much like Street Pass in a way. And it worked with Street Pass in that you could walk past people, and if they'd kind of put some Dream Eaters in a portal, you could then borrow their Dream Eaters. It was really quite awesome as an idea. I don't know how much people did actually use it, and obviously for the HD remaster that they did here on 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue, kind of can't do that, so ultimately the friendship portals are not as useful as they once were. But they are still quite cool, so they're there. But the more important ones are the battle portals, which give you challenges, and upon completing one, you are going to then be able to get special materials which you can then use to make more Dream Eaters. You can also get particular items from doing particularly well in them to kind of get other items and so on and so forth. Really quite helpful, really useful, really fun. There are special types of battle portal called special portals, funnily enough, and what they do is they sort of unlock a special bit in terms of your report, and they will fill up your report in terms of Dream Eaters, because they are kind of special, more challenging Dream Eaters. They're called Rare Nightmares, I feel. And you're kind of going to get some pretty good items out of completing them. And if you manage to complete all of the special portals for every single character, that's kind of a bit rubbish explanation. If you complete all of the special portals in every single world with a character, then you will get a special Keyblade out of it. The only problem with that is that there will only ever be one special portal in a world whenever you drop. And it is not necessarily going to be explained at all when you're actually in a world as to what special portal is available to you at that point. You kind of have to go into a forced drop to be able to see what is available to you at that time, and it may not necessarily be a special portal that is available to you in the world that you're in. Which, fine, can live with that, but hey, it can be a little bit frustrating. And here we have an example of a special portal. So we've got two of these Kuma Pandas here, which are really quite dangerous Dream Eaters for this early in the game. They're really quite deadly because they have a lot of health, they can hit very hard, and this is why I decided that I wanted to make use of everything that I had available to me. And trust me, there is absolutely no worry if you fail a challenge, because particularly those ones that don't get hit more than 2 times are a nightmare to do, especially on some of the more challenging nightmares that you may have to face. But yes, that was an example of a special portal. They are listed about. What is quite cool is that completing some of them will net you recipes for other Dream Eaters, and it's a good way of getting certain Dream Eaters. And yeah, I will say that, yeah, I kinda did die when I first came into this room and did that one, so I did have to restart the entire room. It's one of the curses with the portal sometimes, is you can enter into a portal, if you know, screw it up, then you end up in a situation where you are flung right back to the start of the room, you've not picked up any of the treasure chests, or completed any of the portals in there. So it's effectively a soft reset of the room, which, for me, actually quite helpful, because of how I do playthroughs and so on and so forth, making me actually have to go do a clean run of a room. Absolute godsend, because otherwise, you know, you're going, right, well, how do I edit around this so you're not having to sit around and watch me die and suffer for a ridiculous amount of time. Like, because you want to keep the flow going. That's something I say a lot in my playthroughs in terms of the process of doing a playthrough. You want to keep the flow going. You want there to always be stuff going on. You want there to be new stuff happening. And so repeatedly dealing with a frustration is definitely not the best way to go about it. And yeah, so having that soft reset to the start of a room if you fail, really helpful for me, and definitely much appreciated. Even if sometimes that does mean that I get put to the start of really large bloomin' rooms like this, which, yeah, really did screw me over early on. But as I said, this was, in a way, very much me having to relearn how to play Dream Drop Distance, because I do feel that gameplay-wise it is a little bit heavier than some of the other Kingdom Hearts games. And it might just be that I had, because of the last one being Birth by Sleep, I'd gotten really quite used to playing as like Aqua and stuff, and how her dodges were really blooming amazing, and also her shield, because it was the barrier and it protected everything. It's why ultimately Riku is a more enjoyable character to play in Dream Drop Distance than Sora, because he doesn't, I believe, have the I don't know whether his cartwheely dodge type thing is as good as Aqua's, but his shield is the barrier, and so obviously it protects from everything rather than just in front of you, which is why ultimately, yeah, Riku's more enjoyable to play as. And oh look, we can create a new Dream Eater, a Pricklemane, so we're gonna do just that. And actually I should then make sure to have a full party of Dream Eaters, because that way I'm going to be much more successful. Now, this is another thing that actually is what I'm going to do with the Dream Eaters, but is not necessarily the best route forward, is that I'm going to use the same Dream Eaters for both Sora and Riku. The idea being that I will get more LP points for them and therefore unlock the special abilities sooner, and also you can ultimately use the same Dream Eaters to get the same effects on both, particularly with some of the better abilities like Second Chance once more. They do double up over both characters. So, yeah, what you want to do is you want to try and make sure you have a full team of 3 Dream Eaters as soon as possible, and then start working away at getting them to where you want them to be. It is also advised that you make sure to feed them treats, because in doing so, you might change the disposition, and using them in fights can change the disposition as well, and doing that can unlock different paths on your route, and that is definitely something that you are going to want to do, because it means that you have the ability to get more abilities, and more abilities and attacks is always a good thing. And I have to say, I'm enjoying that there's been a good kind of 15 minutes straight, and there's going to be more of just pure gameplay. After having obviously a lot of cutscenage for the first 2 parts, it's nice to be able to, you know, just talk as I can for ages, because it means that I just have a bit more freedom. But I really should, you know, make sure to get the chest that was in there, because that was a really obvious chest, and I'm feeling pretty annoyed with myself that I'm not going, oh yeah, you should probably go pick that up. I think it's because I saw blocks and thought, oh, I can't get through those, despite the fact of, no, you destroy the blocks, and that's how you get through. There are certain blocks that you can't destroy, even with the slingshots, which is a bit irritating, and it's really something that they should have thought about. But at least I did still have that barrel to be able to do this with, because otherwise I would have been absolutely kicking myself. But one of the things I also will point out is that while it maybe does slightly annoy me, I suppose, that we are back in Traverse Town for the umpteenth time, it's actually a really cool trip to Traverse Town, because it feels like Traverse Town as we've never seen it before, because there are actually areas that we have never seen before, like the entirety of the post office. You've got this entire fountain plaza. There's an entire 4th district that we're going to see. There's an entire 5th district, and just all of that, it makes it feel very different to every other trip that we've ever had here, and that is much appreciated, because Traverse Town was beginning to drag quite as a world, and so having this change to it, much appreciated. The same as, you know, the fact that we have the delight that is all of the World Ends With You characters present in it, because that is not something that I was, well, I don't think anybody was expecting, really. I mean, despite the fact that Tetsuya Nomura is involved in both franchises, Kingdom Hearts was very much always a this is a Final Fantasy game series. It was Final Fantasy and Disney, that was the whole point. And also, The World Ends With You had been very seriously underloved by Square Enix. I think because it hadn't necessarily done quite so well commercially, it was a little bit of a black sheep. I suppose it didn't also help that it's a very odd game in the grand scheme of things. It's very, well, it's got a very specific style, which doesn't necessarily sit well with everybody. And that's totally okay, because everyone has their own likes, dislikes with how games are, and so on and so forth. But I am glad for everyone who loves The World Ends With You that it is beginning to get a little bit more recognition with the solo remix, which was released on iOS iOS, and then the final remix, which has been released on Switch. because what that ultimately does means more people can play it, and hopefully enough people buy the final remix to persuade Square Enix that actually it would be a really good idea, and a lot of people would be really happy if they did an actual sequel. Because I know that that is one of those things that a lot of people do really, really want, and when it's something like that, I definitely do support it. Hopefully I feel the same once I get to the end of The World Ends With You. As it stands, I'm currently in the position of I'm really liking the style of the game, but I do wish that the gameplay was perhaps a little bit, I don't know, I want to say more involved. It might be because obviously the original was the DS, and you had the kind of 2 different screen battle system, which was really quite a cool idea, and Final Remix is 1 screen. And if you're playing in handheld mode, it's touch controls as it would be in the iOS port, if you're not using the Joy-Con, which from what I can gather is not really the best way to be playing the game. So that's why I'm not doing it that way, I'm doing it the touch control way. Because anything to make my life easier. Which may ultimately mean I'm getting a slightly lesser version of the game, but I don't know, I'm taking what I can get and living with it. But yeah, the key thing, I suppose, is that hopefully it does do well enough that everyone gets what they want in the end. That would be nice. And anything to bring a bit of joy into the world, because sometimes, you know, the world right now is a very bleak place. There is some awful, miserable stuff that can occur, and look at just how not full my treasure total is. This is something that I am definitely going to be doing throughout the game. It's something that I've done in every single Kingdom Hearts game that I've done for the channel that's been actually played. I've gotten every single treasure chest, apart from I think maybe 1 or 2 in the original Kingdom Hearts, if only because of how item collection worked in that game. It's something they improved in all of the sequels, so glad they did. And also because, you know, they started actually tracking whether you'd picked up all of the treasure chests, so it's a lot easier to tell whether you'd picked them all up. So, yeah, we are going to be collecting every single treasure chest in the game, because of course we are. The idea is that we are going to do it when we're in every single world, so when we visit the next world we will get all of Sora's treasure chests, then we'll get all of Riku's treasure chests as we go through. If there are kind of outstanding treasure chests after we've beaten a world, we'll go back in and pick them up, because that just makes sense. Traverse Town is going to be different, largely because the way in which Traverse Town works is that you do have to come back and visit it twice anyway. So even if we miss stuff now, we do have a second trip in order to pick everything else up. But the other thing is that there are certain areas that we may not necessarily visit on the first trip that we do on the second trip, and also, you know, it's very easy to accidentally miss chests in worlds that are as large as Dream Drop Resistance does have. And so it's why, in the end, I am going to just do it the way that I have always done it, and hope against hope that when Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out, the size of those worlds is not as frustrating to explore. And hopefully it's relatively easy to find all the treasure chests in that respect.
Never been this way before.
But yes!
Ooh,
This is the 4th district, and it is lovely.
Hey, any chance you're Neku's partner?
Huh? I'm not really sure. All I know is that my name is Rhyme.
You mean you've lost your memory?
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
It's no big deal. You know what they always say. Sometimes memories just need a little help getting out.
Yeah, that's true.
I think Sora needs that more than most.
A little help. I know. Maybe Neku can jog your memory. Come on, Rhyme, let's go find him.
Right.
Yeah, about that, we kind of have a little bit of a side distraction that I want to make use of. So, ultimately, this is the point where I would definitely recommend saving, because the boss is through the next door. But, I mean, also, as you can see, like, our drop meter is now pretty low. You can pretty much see what I said about the game does generally give you enough time to explore and get between save points, and I would say that generally you're probably going to be able to get on a single drop gauge from the start of the world to either the midpoint or just before the boss. Depends on the world, depends how quickly you move through it. But pretty much I would say that is how it roughly does work. But ultimately, before we drop, I'm going to do something that normally I wouldn't do at this point in time, but since it's here, I kind of want to. So yeah, I'm not going to get a Kuma Panda anytime soon, actually, which is a little bit depressing. But I don't have nearly enough items in order to, well, nearly enough materials in order to do that. I am going to be going back into this menu a lot, because obviously, as I said, it's ultimately the way that you're going to progress. So it might be a little bit tedious, but it's worth it. And actually, because of, you know, how I tend to do playthroughs, even if the menus and stuff are not necessarily the most interesting of things all the time, when it's stuff like this, they are kind of important to understanding the choices that I'm making and sort of the thought processes. So I am going to leave these in. There's certain bits that I'm not going to leave in, like if I'm doing a mass feeding of my Dream Eaters of food, or if I'm doing a massive training things with them. Yeah, you're not going to see that, because after you've seen it all the first time, there is no point. But any actually levelling up, that I'm going to leave in. But to close off our delightful journey here, this is Flick Rush, bringing back the hideous card mechanic that I hated from Chain of Memories, but actually used in a way that I can appreciate. Because this is ultimately a pseudo-turn-based battle system using the cards. So you have the action gauge, which is what makes it a little bit more real-time, but what you can do is you can use your cards. If you kind of just attack, then as long as your attack is higher than whatever the opponent uses to either defend themselves or attack, then you'll break through and hurt them. You can also use stuff to defend, which if you defend against your opponent's attack, then that ultimately means that you will get a particularly special move that you can use. Some of it's like an elixir, which will heal all your party, restore loads of cards. It's really awesome. You can also stack cards so that you can do a lot more damage. It's quite awesome, but obviously your ATB gauge will tick down, and it doesn't allow you to only use so many cards at once. So it is something that you need to learn. I am really bad at defending. It's not a tactic that I really learned or made much use of until much later on in the game. So yeah, I did have to learn the hard way that that was a thing that's definitely worthwhile doing. And yeah, I am making use of the tutorials, I am listening to them, but I wasn't listening probably as hard as I should have done. But yes, I am actually going to show you all of the Flick Rush Cups. Obviously, you're not actually going to see any of them, apart from maybe one now-ish, right until the end of the game when we are in the extras. Well... oh no, yeah, it will be the extras when you see all the Flick Rushes. So we'll go slightly more in depth on how that all works then. But I just thought, let's do this one now whilst we're here, because it is a fun side little distraction, and particularly these early ones are not that challenging and are over pretty quickly. But, I mean, pretty much the route that you want to go is club together your moves so that you can always beat out your opponent. When you are so far in, or you've run out of so many cards, switch to one of your ally Dream Eaters and continue. There are certain things that you can do which include making use of the defense tactic. So defending and then using your ultra powerful move to make it through. I believe the Mega Flare tactic is one that a lot of people would recommend to get through the majority of all of the Flick Rush Cups. I believe there is also an Elixir strategy that can be used with a very specific set of Dream Eaters. I would say that the Mega Flare strategy is definitely your safest option and one that I would recommend, but for a lot of these very early Flick Rush Cups, you don't really need them all that much. But there we go! That is our first Flick Rush Cup completed. I am feeling very satisfied with myself right now. And since that is actually done, we are pretty much due to drop at any point in the near future, because yeah, I kind of don't necessarily want to go taking on the boss fight right now. Could probably do with a little bit more levelling up. That might be a little bit useful and helpful. We'll see how it goes on that front. And no, I don't really have enough to get anything. That's really disappointing. But yes, what I'm just going to do is, because why the hell not, this is not something I would recommend doing, but it's something you can do, is when you know, hit a save point, you're in this particular location anyway, yeah, just get into a fight until you drop, because upon dropping, you can use potentially some of the dream points that you've picked up to improve your ally and make them a little bit more effective when they're going into battle. So it can be quite useful at times, and also I do believe that you can get bonuses when you go into bonus time, so that can be quite useful. You will always go back once you return to your most recent checkpoint spot, so that is generally either a save point or the start of a room. So yeah, they're pretty much your options, and yeah, I thought, you know what, let's just let it roll down, because this isn't going to happen very often at all throughout much of the game at all, and just thought, let's just save right before we drop, because why the hell not? But there we go, that is our time with Sora done for now. Let us move on over to Riku. We'll give him some of these drop point bonuses, and we will see exactly where his journey takes us. I mean, please take some of them at least. Take a balloon. Let's go!